Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning to those of you who are in your morning. Karen Frankel here again on another Friday afternoon to get you all drawing. So fantastic to have you all on board, as usual. I'm not quite sure where that phrase came from when I could say on board, but I'm liking it. Something like a drawing board. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I see that we've got 10 people already, so people are really itching to get started. And I thought today that I would show you lots of, a few different charcoal ideas, including some information on what charcoal is all about. And for those of you who haven't worked with charcoal, if you go into an art store, you might be a little bit confused by the lots of varieties that are available for you to use. But first up, I'm going to have a look at my screen to see you all saying hello and for me to say hello back. So we can say, hi Jasminka, hello Amanda, good morning, and Savvy is here with us, hello, Lois, Anna, hello, you made it, Anna, welcome, welcome. And I think we've got quite a few people who are a bit shy to say hello. That's okay, it would be nice, but not to worry. So I think that we are all ready to get started. So let's jump in, and I will transfer over to my special page where you can see everything that is happening. Okay, so what have I got to do? I've got to do that, and you've got my little me holding on to my easel and saying drawing with charcoal, so that you know what we're doing. So I'll leave that up there for the moment, and I'm going to show you a few things. Most of us, if you are familiar with any charcoal at all, will be familiar with this stuff, which is called willow charcoal. So in Australia we call it willow charcoal. In South Africa I used to call it willow charcoal. I think in the States they call it vine charcoal. But it boils down to the same thing. It actually comes from a plant. And you can see that that's bent. You can see there's a little knot on there. Make sure that you can see. Actually, I'm not sure if you can see that, but it is most definitely made from a tree or something like that. You can almost see a little ring at the top there. And of course, depending on the thickness of the branch or twig, you get different sizes of charcoal. This is actually my preferred general charcoal, and I will show you why. When it comes to charcoal that's this thin, I don't find that particularly useful. I know that some artists use this as a preparation for their painting work, so I guess you could hold it very gently and rough out where you want to draw. That's about the thinnest charcoal that I use, because I really like also to hold it on its side so that I can get down nice big areas of tone. The other thing that I don't like doing is, so if I've got a long stick like this, I don't tend to use that stick like a pencil. If I'm going to do something like that, then I'd rather use a pencil because I find it too delicate pretty much, and also because such a long stick is pretty useless for putting on its side. I can't get the full width of the charcoal down because of that bend. So my recommendation is to break off a chunk like that, and even though this is quite thin, I can still get some charcoal down there. Now, if you're interested, the paper that I'm using is just ordinary cartridge paper, that's it. the same paper that I use for all my demonstrations pretty much. And you can see that as I press hard, I'm not sure if you can see just yet, see this powder that's coming off? So it goes all black, and then there's no more room on the paper for that charcoal to go, and that's why you get all this charcoal dust. Now, a word of advice is don't blow it. Couple of reasons for that. First of all, it gets everywhere. So if I were to blow this now, it would get on my computer keyboard and it would just mess up this whole desk. The other reason, and more importantly, it's really not good for your health to breathe that in, because it's a very, very fine, misty powder in the air that you will automatically breathe in. I'm just going to go back to see if there are any questions and say hello to some other people that have joined us. So hi Heather, hello Karen Simpson and Dieter, hello, hi Stacy, hello Annika from Bloberg, from wet Bloberg Strand. So hello to you all. Please ask any questions in those comments. I will eventually get to them, and I know there's about a 30-second delay, but I will try and get to them. Even if it's right at the end, I will answer your questions. Okay, so you can see, getting back to that powder that's on there, that it's hanging around. If you don't want it on there, and most of us don't, what I tend to do, oh, I just dropped my knife, excuse me, is keep a piece of newspaper underneath. I'm just going to take a random bit of paper because I forgot to get a piece of newspaper. Actually, don't keep the newspaper underneath. Keep it on the side somewhere, but I will show you here so that you can see what's going on. I'm going to bang that book so it's gone away from there, but it is now on my newspaper. So that is the best way to get rid of that dust. Of course, if you're working on an easel, this will be lifted up, and I know that a lot of people use newspaper down below, or a tarp or something to catch that dust so that it doesn't mess everything up. And obviously if you step into it all over the place, you will traipse that around your home. So that is what's going on with that. Willow charcoal, that's the first one. So nice big chunk. That might be a bit difficult to break. Oh, see, I broke just a tiny bit. Oh, that's gone right down my back because I had a very scratchy point there. So you can work it until it goes a bit flat. Willow charcoal or vine charcoal. Now I'd like to talk to you about compressed charcoal. And it pretty much goes hand in hand with charcoal pencils. There are lots of different kinds of charcoal pencils, and every charcoal pencil, by its very nature, has to have compressed charcoal in it. You can't really build a wooden pencil around natural willow charcoal. So bear that in mind, that whenever you have a charcoal pencil, this is a Derwent one medium. Medium means how soft or hard it is, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a few secs. So anything that you find in a pencil has to be compressed, manufactured, in other words. One I don't have to show you, but let you know is available. You can get woodless charcoal pencils, so it is still manufactured. It's manufactured hard piece of charcoal, and then they put some paint over it so that you've got the full big area of charcoal at your tip instead of that tip and wood. So that is an available thing. As soon as you see something that says charcoal pencil, you know that it's compressed charcoal. Now, with the willow charcoal, to my knowledge, I may correct this if anyone knows different. To my knowledge, all willow charcoal has one level of softness. So however that gets charred, I think it's in a tin that gets chucked in the fire, to put it simply. But even if you've taken out a piece of coal from your fire, leftover barbecue, those charred bits of wood, I'm pretty sure that most of us have been drawing with that charred bit of wood. And they will all have the same amount of blackness, the same softness or hardness. Okay, so to my knowledge, that when it comes to compressed charcoal, because it is manufactured, they mix, I assume, again I don't know for a fact, they mix charcoal or something that's been burned, charred, and they mix it with variations of a resin or a clay, and when it comes to tinted charcoal, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, a color possibly, and they mix it together. I do know that sometimes they use a talc with pastel work. They're all soft and they compress it very, very hard, and some people add a bit of talc powder to compress it. And because you are compressing it, you can compress it to different degrees and you can get hard and soft. So this is a medium. What that means is, oh, and that goes right down my spine, that it goes down fairly quickly, and you can see actually that there's powder coming off. So it's about the same softness as that willow charcoal. But I think I've got a hard one here. Well, no, I've got a dark one. So that one says dark. Ah, okay. I found something out because I haven't compared these two before. You can actually see that that is much, much darker. Not sure if you can see that, but I can see that. This medium one was closer to the natural charcoal. This dark one is much darker, so the quantity of charcoal to whatever they're mixing it with is greater, but it's still quite soft and it's giving off some more of that dust. Now, this is a piece of compressed charcoal that you can buy on its own like this, so that I can actually use like my willow charcoal and put it down. And this is a particularly hard one. So it is still producing dust, but it's not quite the same level of dust that the others have produced. And you can see that all three have got a slightly different feel to it. Just getting my video back on my phone. I don't know why it stopped working. I like to see what you can see down there. So I like to have that available and having a look. Okay, that's what compressed charcoal is all about. Yes, different manufacturers, they will have different qualities. You have to try it out. Sometimes if you have got these pieces of regular compressed charcoal around and you've got your ordinary charcoal around, it's quite difficult to tell the difference, and sometimes I have to drop it to tell. So see if you can hear this. Did you hear? That's got quite a loud clunk, and the other charcoal is a softer drop. So go figure. I also know that my compressed charcoal has got a regular shape. You can also get square, soft pastel sticks. I haven't got one right in front of me to show you. I'm not quite sure what the difference is between a black pastel and a black charcoal. So they behave in very similar ways, and in fact, If you want to add color to your charcoal, you can work with pastels and they go very, very well together. On that note, I will tell you why, what things go together with regards to pastels and graphite, or charcoal and graphite. Many times in my studio, I have, or students have drawn with a graphite pencil to start off with, because they know that they can rub out their graphite pencil, so they'll do that, and then they'll work with charcoal on top. Not a good idea, and I'll tell you why. In my opinion, there are reasons for things, but you can break the rules. So they're not rules, there are reasons or circumstances, not circumstances, consequences. So if I put a lot of graphite down, the charcoal that I'm trying to put it on top of that doesn't stick very well. It appears that graphite, this is a 6B pencil, has got something shiny, a kind of the clay and the resin or whatever is used to combine your graphite, leaves you with a shiny texture. And because it's shiny, there isn't anything matte or toothwise to grab on to that charcoal. So that's a simple reason why it's not a good idea to mix your charcoal with your pencil. However, sorry, I just tried my compressed charcoal there, and the same thing is happening. That charcoal is skimming over that pencil. It doesn't really grab. If that happens to be the effect that you want, and you want to work in a lovely mixed media way, then do it. Go for it. Who's there to tell you not to? So I'm putting my my usual apple. That's my go-to for putting down a quick sketch. So there's my pencil, but then I might go, okay, I want some charcoal mixed in. I kind of like it. Who's there to tell you not to? Traditionally, they aren't used together, and physically they don't mix together. But that looks pretty dramatic. I don't mind that at all. Okay, so that's the reason. Now, I mentioned color and using color with your charcoal. If you have some pastels, I haven't brought some pastels out with me, but I have brought Conte, and I am going to talk about Conte as well anyway. Because of the texture of these colors and how they are powdery and how they need tooth to grab, they have the same feel as charcoal, and therefore they mix pretty well together. So many people use charcoal with their pastels, or if they want to add a subtle color, and you can see that if I mix this with charcoal, that can only be subtle. However, if I've done a colored work with pastels, have a look at this dust that's coming off again, then I might come back in with my charcoal. Same thing's going to happen if I try and come back in with pencil. Ooh, that is interesting. It's pushing the charcoal, it's pushing the pastel out of the way. So you can use pencil on top of charcoal. There you go, I'm experimenting. But I'm pretty sure it's not going to go, no, it's not. The pastel is not going to go over that graphite. Okay, while I'm on the subject of Conte. Conte is a brand name, but it's kind of become synonymous with pastel pencils or charcoal pencils. much like you talk about I'm going to hoover the carpet, although I don't think anyone says that anymore. Hoover became synonymous with a vacuum cleaner, so Conte pencils are a little bit synonymous with charcoal. And in fact, it says there, charcoal pencil, Conte à Paris. Excuse my French. So they also have colours. Now, originally with Conte, they came out with just natural sort of colours. So these sanguine or what's the other colour? It'll come to me. So sanguine is that beautiful red. Oh, sepia. Sepia is, let's just see, make sure that you can see what I'm doing. I might actually just realized we're not looking at a picture, so you don't actually need that in your, that's better. Okay, so this is sepia and that's sanguine. So originally they did come out just in these natural colors, and they came out in these sticks and or these pencils. Okay, however, they have now, or in fact probably for a number of years, they are now producing a whole range of colors as well. And you can see I was gifted these colors by a friend, and you can see there's beautiful colors there. They are just gorgeous to use. The subtle difference that I find between Conte sticks like this, Conte, and your pastels that you might use in a pastel painting is that these are harder. So pastels are usually a little bit softer to work with, and these have really got a very hard edge to them. Of course, you can also get pastel pencils. So we're going into a whole different avenue now, but I did want to mention that these pencils are often used with your charcoal. Okay, talking about colors, I'm now going to talk about tinted charcoal, which is a fairly recent addition to our charcoal mix. And I'm just taking this all away so that I can change to a new sheet of paper, and I'm going to get my drop sheet ready, and we're going to get a whole lot of dropped, excuse the noise, so you can see it's all dropped there. And I'm going to turn the page. Okay, so this is all smudged already. How did you like my joke with my dog? My gorgeous dog. I know some of you have seen her on some of these videos. Funnily enough, when I thought of the name Smudge, I wasn't thinking of charcoal. Okay, tinted charcoal. So Derwent have come up with a set of charcoal pencils that they call tinted charcoal. And I've got one here to show you somewhere. Oh, I always think I have, and then I can't find it. So pretty much exactly pencils like this, but they've added a bit of color in there. And in fact, I do oh, here it is. Okay, so this one is Mountain Blue. And if I put that down there, it's got this beautiful grayish teal color. Quite frankly, I am not sure what the difference is between a tinted charcoal and a pastel pencil. Presumably, there's a bit of this stuff mixed in it, a little bit like your compressed charcoal. It's probably a little bit like, you know, a colored Conte piece with a bit of compressed. So manufacturers are having a lot of fun with what they're doing with tinted charcoal, and you can actually buy this. You can buy tinted charcoal certainly in the Derwent range as a set, some 6 sets, some are, I think there's a 24 set. And you've got this kind of dirty color with it, which I actually really, really love. So it's already got that feel to it, so you don't have to put charcoal down and then come back with another color. It's already all mixed for you. The one that I find most amusing, however, is a Derwent Tinted Charcoal that's white. So you can also buy sticks like this that are white, and they are called charcoal as well. So they're called tinted charcoal, which I find highly amusing, but I guess what they're saying is it has the same properties as charcoal. It feels like charcoal. And of course, all of these tinted pencils and your Conti pencils are compressed. So whenever you've got something in a pencil, they are compressed. So what do we need this jolly white pencil for? Well, you can do a bit of blending with it. You can't really add white over the top. It doesn't work particularly well. Let's see if I can put some compressed charcoal down. Oh, again, that's going down my spine. So it's not particularly helpful in terms of adding white. So we'll talk about white in a second. Quite amusing though. Where this is useful is if you are working on colored paper or a ground that you would use for pastel work, and it's a tinted paper. I've got a tiny bit of tinted paper here. Excuse me, leaning over under the camera. That's not very tinted though. The white is showing up a little bit, so it's probably quite good for that. Yep, so that's white charcoal. And the last type of charcoal that I do want to show off, and these were given to me by my gorgeous nephew, who suddenly, not suddenly at all, sometimes appears on these videos and joins me from London. Before these came out in Australia, he bought me this beautiful set of XL, extra large charcoal blocks. And if you have a large canvas, you can take that big charcoal block and, oh, again, you can see how soft they are because of all this powder coming out. You've got beautiful black. So of course these are compressed, but they are enormously soft. Is that wasn't enormously soft? Wasn't the right thing. Looks like I'm drawing a bit of a pumpkin there. And look what we've got. We've got white as well. So there you go. What I was going to say about the white. If you are a pastel artist, or even if you have used charcoal before, you will know that it is extremely helpful to spray your charcoal with fixative. I sometimes use hairspray for a fixative. My late dad, who did thousands, literally thousands of works with Conte pencil and pastel pencils and charcoal, he used to use hairspray to fix his work. And what that means is once you have sprayed that fixative, or you can buy fixative, you will not be able to smudge or remove any of this charcoal. And I think perhaps if you spray some dark charcoal and then you put your white on top of it, that might show your white up much more clear so that it doesn't smudge into the charcoal that you've already put down. Okay, so Nene says, I couldn't find any charcoal here in Hong Kong. I only have a pastel pencil. That's very, very interesting. I'm interested to hear that, but your pastel pencil will work quite nicely. It is all a similar style. The only thing you won't be able to do with your pastel pencil is to put your charcoal on its side unless you can find a stick of pastel, in which case then you can put it on its side. Okay, before I go anywhere further with this, I would like to show you something about erasing. I'm just checking my screen to see if you can still see the full picture. That's great. As many of you might know, if you have used charcoal before, the stuff doesn't erase particularly easily. Oh, look at these gorgeous smudgy hands. If she comes to sit on my lap, she won't be white for very much longer. Okay, this thing that I'm playing with in my hand is called a kneadable eraser, and it's a kneadable, K-N-E-A-D-A-B-L-E, because you pull it and stretch it like that. Because when you put it down and you draw with it, so did you hear what I said? I said when you draw with it, not when you erase with it, you get a big dirty smudge on the eraser, and that would not be very useful to color in with. What am I talking about? Wouldn't be very useful to lift more charcoal out. So you need that dirty bit away. So where this comes into its own, as far as I'm concerned, and I will show you with the different kinds of charcoal. There's my Willow Charcoal going down. If I want to bring some character into that, and if you watch my, I do have a YouTube video, one of these videos that I did a number of months ago on doing a portrait with the style where you put charcoal on the page. You can then lift out where you want light, and there again you can see that big dark mark on the eraser. That is gorgeous, but you can see we don't get back to the white paper. So even if I were to put white on top of that, I'm not going to get back to the white paper. I nearly called it potato. Oh goodness. So this is beautiful for putting marks in. It is not particularly useful to tear off a tiny little bit like that and then try and use that. Okay, it's just gets all dirty too quickly, and it bends away from you. You can't control that tiny little bit. So when I want to draw a line like that, I put a ridge on it. I put a ridge like that. Don't know if you can see. And I find it easier to work with like that. You can do lots of things with this to create different characters. What I would suggest is, before you start drawing a sketch, especially if you're using charcoal for the first time, do a page like this, muck around with it, see what happens. So I can take this and I can roll it around, get a gorgeous bit of texture happening there. Look how black it is. I've got to knead that away so that I can use it again. I'm going to play with that, and I might come back. So I'm still using my Willow Charcoal. Let's say I want to darken some of those edges of where I've just sent my eraser through. So you can play to your heart's content. Kneadable eraser, that's the effect. Now, compressed charcoal is even more difficult to erase than Willow Charcoal. If you want to create this effect with your kneadable eraser, you need to do it with Willow Charcoal. This is my compressed charcoal. Watch what happens when I try and erase with this. Not much. A little bit of a smudge there and nothing there. So no matter how soft your pencil, let me go to a real soft one. Okay, so this big stick was a soft compressed charcoal. Trying to find some more of my paper here. Very, very soft. It's got lots of powder coming off, more than in the other section. Let's see what happens with my kneadable eraser in a nice little ridge. Hardly a dent. If you like that effect, then go for it. One thing I haven't mentioned that many of you might know about is something called a paper stump, and I do not possess one. When I was in my art studio business, I had lots there, but I haven't brought any to my home, quite simply because I don't use them. But smudging charcoal is something that you can do to great effect deliberately. So let's go back to this little pumpkin here. Just digress from the erasers for a bit. I can smudge that quite happily with my finger. The paper stumps are kind of shaped like that. They're a round stump like that with a point on it, and they're made from compressed paper, and so they are useful because you can actually get into a point. Use anything you like to smudge. Let's see, seeing as this was smudging that so well, but I guess it's a bit of a waste of your eraser to use that as a smudging tool. So that's a bit of smudging. As you smudge, you are pushing that charcoal into the paper so that when you want to lift it off, it's not going to lift off very well. Now that's interesting. That was a bit of my color, but because it wasn't such a thick area, I was able to lighten it a little bit. You can attack it with a white eraser as well. So I'm going to show you across all of these things, and you can see that a white eraser will lift off a little bit of the compressed. Again, you still have your white paper not being white when you get into it. Okay, so don't be afraid to use this, but use it creatively. These eraser techniques are not to erase errors because they're just not good enough. Often on a charcoal work, you'll have a ghosted effect. You know, somebody will draw a face, let's say, and they don't want the mouth in that position. We might be able to, you know, lift it off a little bit and then, you know, draw another mouth, but you can still see where you lifted it off. So erasing with charcoal is about creating effect. It's not about fixing errors. And this is my trusty Derwent battery operated eraser, and that attacks your charcoal as well, but not really much more than a good hefty dose of a white eraser. So there it went across the compressed charcoal, and it's a little bit finer than your big thick eraser. I've even got a tiny, tiny eraser like this. Let's see what happens. Yep. So bringing back white is easier to do that way than it is using your white eraser. I roll a piece of plain paper into a point to use as a paper stump. Absolutely, Bev. Quite correct. Should we try that quickly? So You probably need a bit more than that. Let's have a go at that, shall we? You've got to roll it pretty tight, I guess. But I rolled it on top of my messy paper. Let's see if this works. Yes, I forgot about that. Thanks for mentioning that, Bev. So, yep, that's actually pushing some of that dust around. And actually, one of the techniques that I have done previously with those paper stumps is if you have got a whole lot of dust like this, you can pick it up on your paper stump and draw with it somewhere else. You can also use soft cotton earbuds, that sort of thing. So charcoal is definitely about playing. And there was one last thing. I'm just looking at my list of things to share with you today. One thing I do want to share with you, because I get asked this fairly frequently, is how do you sharpen pastel pencils when they've got wood? And I know that some sets of charcoal pencils that I've seen come with a sharpener, special sharpener. I'm not sure about those. I haven't used one. I don't like trusting this inside a sharpener because I think that compressed charcoal in there will break too easily. The other reason I don't like using a sharpener is that I waste too much of the actual pigment in there, that charcoal, when you sharpen that to a point. And there are other ways of getting to a point. So that knife that I dropped, I'll just grab. My tip to you when you are sharpening, this is not a whittle, going because it's too easy to break off that tip. So I control my knife, I hold my pencil in my left hand, and I just scrape away very gently. I'm kind of moving the pencil rather than moving the knife, but it's a bit of a combination, and I'm pushing that knife with my thumb there, and I'm just shaving off the wood, and I'm trying not to shave off any of the pastel. I use this technique with my colored pencils as well, especially my Albrecht Dürer pencils. That's the ones that I was using last week, because they have a very thick shaft in there, and I don't want to waste all of that color. So you can see that I've used the same technique on that. If you absolutely need to get a point on there, then get a blank piece of paper or and just roll it around as you are moving. You don't even need, I know some people use sandpaper. It's probably a little bit harsh for charcoal, but if your charcoal is quite firm and hard, and then you can get a nice point like that. I must admit that charcoal is, for me, it's a bold medium. I don't work particularly delicately with charcoal, so I don't bother with those points. So let's give him some eyes. I think that I have come to the end of my charcoal demonstration for you. To sum up, we have got, first thing I showed you, which is willow charcoal. So willow charcoal can be bought in many sizes. That's a little bit thin for my liking, but you can go right up to super thick willow charcoal, natural charcoal, soft and grey. If you're going to want to erase and get character with your kneadable eraser, you need to use Willow Charcoal. The next biggest difference, Willow or compressed. Compressed is hard. No, that's not my hard piece because I dropped that and it was all bouncy. There's one of my hard pieces. Compressed charcoal is a manufactured thing. All charcoal that is sitting in a pencil, whether it's by Conte brand or Derwent brand and it says charcoal, or even if it hasn't got any wood and it's all the full charcoal pencil, that's all compressed. That has got a much blacker feel mostly, and you will have much more difficulty in moving that around. You won't be able to smudge it quite as well or quite as far as your Willow Charcoal. You then also get Tinted Charcoal, which is color that's been added to charcoal to give you different effects, and Conte is, I guess, a mix between charcoal and pastel. They're all fitting in the same category as far as I'm concerned. And another important thing that I wanted to remind you about is be aware that you don't usually mix your colored pencils or graphite pencils with the chalky type of media like charcoal. And I think that I will go back to a full shot of me in all my dirty, smudgy glory. How's that? And say thank you for being with me this afternoon. I have been asked a question, am I using a Naturage pencil? Or I don't know what that means, I'm afraid. I shall have to look that up. I'm not sure what that question means. Sorry. I can't answer you. Let's see if I've missed any other questions. I have some Stabilo, Carbothillo that seem like tinted charcoal. Are you familiar with those? Yes, I am. I have seen them. They're more similar to the Conte pencils, and absolutely, it's just a different brand name, so they all do pretty much the same. Just be aware that your compressed stuff is usually not as malleable, as pliable as the natural. Let's see if we've got any other questions. I did say I would go back. Okay, I can't see any other questions, but if you do think of any, you're very, very welcome to post in this feed, in the same feed. So once the video is over, the comments are all still available, and I will answer your questions in there. And it's been a pleasure as usual. I'm all smudged. I think I'll have to wash my hands before I go and play with my dog. Have fun with charcoal. I'm thinking that my challenge on Tuesday might have something to do with charcoal. It's been great having you on board. Get drawing. Bye-bye from me, Karen Frankel. Bye.